This video is to give one a basic understanding of why Chairman Dr. Laurie Watson at the University of San Diego is working in conjunction with retired Professor Patrick J. Hurley in further advancing upon deductive logic. Let's go back to 346 years before the birth of Christ, when Aristotle discovered the 6 steps of the scientific method after leaving the academy where he studied under Plato for 20 years. Plato was concerned with the spiritual world. Aristotle became interested in science and developing and inventing the scientific method. Now, the scientific method consists of 6 steps. You make a clear statement about your objective, which you attempt to prove or disprove. You categorize all the facts and data. The second step is you collect all the facts and data. The third step is you categorize all the facts and data. This is what's done in the daily ration form. It gives you facts and data. It has a category of those facts and data. But the clear statement that's made by the daily ration form, and the reason it's purchased for $10 per day, 7 days a week, the world over, is that the clear statement is to project the winning horse. Who's going to win, place, or show? Now, when Aristotle reached the third step, once the clear statement has been made, facts and data have been collected, facts and data has been categorized as it's done in daily ration form. The third, and perhaps the most important step, is formulating what's called a valid scientific hypothesis. And the reason that Dr. Hurley is in conjunction with Department Chair Dr. Laurie Watson at the University of San Diego is working in conjunction is because his textbook is a combination of inductive logic, which was discovered by Sir Francis Bacon 2,000 years later, and deductive logic, Aristotelian logic, 400 years before the birth of Christ. So logic has been developing for the past 2,400 years as parallel medical science. It parallels the development the same as to make the argument in conjunction or parallel to medical science. Logic is a discipline unto itself. An example, Sir Francis Bacon 2,000 years later in the 1600s never formulated a valid scientific hypothesis because of his induction consists of 3 steps, but when Aristotle got to the third step to formulate the valid hypothesis, scientific hypothesis, it requires rules. Now I'm going to give you some of the basic rules, of which Dr. Patrick Hurley, in his 6th edition, which I utilize, he's now in his 14th edition. But what he's actually doing, to give you a basic understanding, is more and more valid and invalid logic is being founded. For an example, a valid deductive argument is called a syllogistic argument. It consists of three terms: a major term, a minor term, and a middle term, three M's. Now, by definition, the syllogism, a valid scientific hypothesis, when formulated, the major term, or the major premise, the major term has a major term. The major term has to be the subject term. Has to be the predicate term of the conclusion. The minor term must be the subject term of the conclusion. The middle term must occur in both premises, but never in the conclusion. Otherwise, it's invalid. So it must meet that strict criteria. It's geometry. It's called shirt collar geometry. Every term has to be in exact order, as is mathematics. Now, at the University of San Diego, at Wayne State University at Detroit, Michigan, in which I was instructor from 89 to 92, both subjects are combined in Dr. Hurley's textbook: inductive logic and deductive logic. Aristotle's deductive logic consists of 6 steps. After the scientific hypothesis, a valid scientific hypothesis, which is what we've done in our module, Einstein's p-variance and horse racing, what occurs is perhaps the reason why Sir Francis Bacon has a 3-step program in inductive logic, because there are only 112 fallacies, informal fallacies in inductive logic. But deductive logic is different. For example, if all cats are black, and I have a cat, it's an absolute certainty that I must have a black cat. That's how my hypothesis, my valid scientific hypothesis, is established with the help of course, Dr. Hurley, back in 1995. That letter is in our module. And how this valid scientific hypothesis can be employed in conjunction with all the facts and data that is found in the Daily Racing Form. There's no other publication known to man that has the facts and data in order to formulate the valid scientific hypotheses. I've taught at many 2-year colleges. In 2-year colleges, the forms or the sections of logic are separated. You take philosophy 7 is inductive logic, and philosophy 8 is deductive logic. They're separate. But at world-class universities, they're not separate. University of San Diego is a world-class university. Cambridge, Oxford, Yale, Harvard, Wayne State University at Detroit, Michigan, are world-class universities. Therefore, logic is combined in the subject. To study logic at the university, you take both in combination. In Sir Francis Bacon, informal logic, and Aristotle's formal logic. Sir Francis Bacon never established a valid scientific hypothesis as did Aristotle. But Aristotle had to stop at the third step in formulating the hypothesis, because once the hypothesis is formed, you must be able to make a deduction, a valid deduction from that hypothesis. Once that valid deduction is made, then it must be tested, either valid or it's invalid. And once that's discovered, it has to be published, whether it's right or wrong. Whether my scientific hypothesis is correct, valid or invalid, it has to be tested. And once tested, the results has to be published. Mine is published. It took some 40 years to get that volume published, but only with the help and the assistance of Dr. Patrick Hurley back in 1995 did I accomplish that. Now, this is a segue into why it is necessary for a person to have at his disposal the facts, the data, in order to formulate a valid scientific hypothesis. One must have, in conjunction with my volume, that information that's found exclusively in the Daily Racing Form. There's no other document known to man that has this information. It's a daily publication that's been in existence since 1894. That's 125 years, soon to be 126 years. So I make this video in getting greater clarification on the difference between induction and deduction. Dr. Hurley is actually in conjunction with Dr. Lori Watson, who's now department chair at the University of San Diego. They're working in conjunction as I speak on the 14th edition, because they're discovering what? More and more valid and invalid deductive forms of logic. It's called syllogistic. In other words, syllogistic logic has to meet the strict form of geometry. It's what we call shirt collar geometry. That's the arrangement of the terms in the argument or in the syllogism. And they're discovering what's called valid moods and figures of deduction, or the syllogistic, or Aristotle's doctrine of the syllogism. That's why he's on the 14th edition. It's not to make more money. It's not to continue having students purchase volumes of Introduction to Logic by Patrick Hurley in conjunction with Dr. Lori Watson at the University of San Diego. But it's more and more discovery. For an example, logic as we've known it in the past is based in the 0 and 1, or Pascal's weight, or Pascal's 0 and 1. It's Pascal's math. But now, computers now are being outdated, and only a logician is qualified to advance into what's called quantum computing. computers are being outdated. Not only is logic evolving into quantum computers, but it also has to be consistent with quantum mathematics. 3x plus 1 is an idea of how quantum computing will work in the future. So, once again, I offer this video as a segue into understanding what the module is all about. But, here comes that goat. It's reduced to a 6th grade level of understanding of how to make this application in conjunction with the information that's discovered or found in the Daily Racing Forum each and every day for 7 days a week, all over the world, where horse racing exists, in Australia, in Japan, in the Philippines, in the United Arab Emirates, the steeplechase racing in Australia. I mean, we're talking about really the sport of kings. And many persons in this country have tried to enter into the industry of the sport of kings. Many with whom I've worked. Barry Gordy, Burt Bacharach, MC Hammer, Merv Griffin, and one of the most outstanding persons now that has most exclusive horses is an NFL football team called the New England Patriots. They own a horse that never runs in this country. His name is Gronkowski. Gronkowski competed in the United Arab Republics in Dubai Cup. It was a $12 million race. Well, that racehorse, Gronkowski, is owned by the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, the coach of the New England Patriots, and Tom Brady, Rob, and the whole team owns the horse. So they're coming closer to being well established in the sport of kings than anyone. All the movie stars have had horses who ran at Hollywood Park, Santa Anita, Del Mar, the race course that was built by Bing Crosby, Jimmy Durante, and Pat O'Brien. It's a world-class race course. But, comes the goat again, no one has successfully entered into the sport of kings in this country because there are no kings in the United States of America. I forgot to mention Telly Savalas. They own some great race horses. For an example, MC Hammer had a horse called Light Light. One of the greatest fillies ever run. He made $36 million off this horse. But now he's bankrupt. He owes the Internal Revenue Service. Merv Griffin had racehorses. If you watch television, you know Merv Griffin. You watch Jeopardy, many of the other programs, but they just can't cut the mustard. Mr. Barry Gordy bought a horse once. Whose overstable was Mr. Roger Campbell. God rest his soul. He would call me and say, Professor, Barry Gordy bought a horse. The horse's name was Alex the Great, who ran in France at the Longchamp. He paid millions of dollars for this horse. In 2 years, When he brought the horse, I said, Barry, I said, keep the horse in France because they don't have mile and a half races here in America. They might have one. And they've only had 2 horses in America in the last 50 years that could go a mile and a half on the turf. They don't have turf races in this country at a mile and a half. One horse was named Bien Bien, ridden by Hall of Fame jockey Chris McCarron, and another horse that ran a mile and a half on the turf. His name was Hawkster. That horse was ridden by, I can't call his name right now, well, either Alex Solis. Now, but, come to goat again, it is indeed the sport of kings. People lose at horse racing. Only 1%, less than 1% of racehorse goers actually can make a living at the race course. Well, I had to do it when I was residing at Sunnyvale, California, which is in Silicon Valley. I lived there 5 years, and I had to earn a living. I'm working for Motorola and Western Electric. Wasn't enough money to live in Silicon Valley, not in California. So, be this as it may, it's not funny. But don't buy a racehorse and think you're going to succeed in the sport of kings. Now, I'm wise enough, in my opinion, that I would never buy a racehorse. I mean, who am I? If Merv Griffin can't succeed, if Burt Bacharach didn't succeed, Telly Savalas didn't succeed, Elizabeth Taylor and Michael Jackson didn't succeed, I can go on and on and on and name people who weren't, they're not kings. The President Trump owned the racehorse. He's not a king. He couldn't keep it up. So, anyway, yeah, like I say, it's not funny, but it's really a joke when a person thinks he can actually earn a living at a race course in the absence of our publication, Einstein Speed Variance and Horse Racing. Without knowing that volume, and in combination with the daily racing form, you're going to lose. It's as simple as that. Now, any person in America with any common sense, and I don't have common sense because logic is not based in common sense. There's no common sense to logic. If all cats are black, and if I had a cat, the cat would have to be black. Every statement is false, but it's a valid argument. Now, so let me put the truth out there. The truth is, don't get into horse racing, because horse racing is more addictive than heroin. Now, I'm going to make that plain. So, don't ask me how I know. Take a word from the wise. Horse racing is more addictive than heroin. Now, you can take that to the bank. Now, I'm finished with my lecture, but get the volume, get the book, study it, show yourself approved, and go and knock them dead. And you've been less than 1% of earning a living at the race course, because our volume is based in a valid scientific hypothesis. And thanks for listening, and hope to see you at the racetrack and in the winner's circle. Thank you. My name is Harrison Whitney. I can be contacted at area code 248-818 3461. Any questions about horse racing or logic, inductive, deductive, modal logic, symbolic logic, mathematical logic, don't hesitate giving me a call. Thank you, and see you at the races.